Hello and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. This is episode 74 and I'm your host, Brian Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The online information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. Be sure to like and share the program as well. You can also support the program by going to Anchor FM or Spotify and clicking the support button. Folks, we are looking for program sponsorship. It's the holiday season and you need to get your gear, your merchandise, and your products out there. Do you own a business? Do you want exposure? Do you want to be heard? Let me help you advertise your business right here on this podcast. Program sponsorships include a custom written script to advertise your business to its fullest potential. Email me directly at thetallybill@gmail.com and let's set up an impactful advertising plan to help you and your business get the results you're looking for. Again, email me directly at thetallybill@gmail.com. That's thetallybill@gmail.com. And let's get started today. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Kristi Pierce grew up in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, where she spent most of her early years riding horses. She obtained a bachelor's degree from James Madison University and a master's degree in education from Mary Baldwin University. Her thesis focused on outdoor classrooms and the therapeutic benefits of nature. In 2001, she moved to Texas, where she has spent her career working with and advocating for at-risk youth and special populations. She is an instructor for wilderness first aid, CPR, AED, pet first aid, and level 1 and 2 kayaking. She is a PATH International Certified Equine Specialist in mental health and a therapeutic riding instructor in training. She is currently employed as a program manager at JoyRide Center in Magnolia, Texas. Kristi's biggest pride comes from her family history of military service dating back to World War I. Her oldest son and daughter are currently serving on active duty in the Army, and her youngest son plans to join the Air Force after college. And with that, we are honored to be joined by Kristi Pierce. How are you, ma'am?
I am doing great.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So you're out there in a barn in Magnolia.
I'm actually at my house. This is my barn.
Love it. Got a couple beautiful horses back there behind you.
I do, and this one right here behind me is a really special horse that was actually one that I adopted the day after my daughter left for basic training. So she's been my project, and she had been seized by the SPCA and as a feral horse, and they said that she would be, untrainable and dangerous, and here we are. I ride her, and she's great. So anything's possible.
There you go. I love that. Somebody thought that horse was going to be no good, and you adopted that horse essentially, right?
Yeah. So I adopted her. She was the last one to get adopted of the herd of 40, and because she's kind of small, which I am too, so it works out.
Hey, you know what? That's cool. You give a horse some love and some attention and some good meals, and all of a sudden you bring that beautiful horse back and you've got yourself a great project, and you'll always know when your daughter was shipped off to boot camp, huh?
That's right.
Outstanding. Well, listen, we're very excited to have you today. Just want to let the folks know that I met Kristi out at a Veterans Day event, and we had tables that were kind of connected, and we began to talk, and we built a friendship over the last couple of weeks. And I invited her on the podcast here to talk about what she does with folks that are special needs, and they get them on the backs of horses. And like I said, she's done all this outdoor activity stuff, and I thought she would be a great fit for the program. So let's get started. You say that you are from the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Explain what your childhood was like.
Oh man, it was a lot of fun. So growing up, my mom was a school teacher, and that was kind of cool having your mom at the school where you went. And the school had no air conditioning. It was in a little town called New Hope, mainly a farming community, and we had fourth grade in the boiler room and third grade on the stage. And when the cows got out on the soccer field, it was PE time to chase them back in. So that was a lot of fun growing up and going to school there. My friends had horses. I rode horses. One of my good friends was in a farming accident when I was in high school. And this was a friend that I rode with, and he ended up being paralyzed from the waist down, but he kept riding. And so it was interesting to see what that horse did for him. And here I am now working in a therapeutic riding center, and I didn't even know that equine therapy and hippotherapy, as they call it, was a thing. But that was kind of my first introduction to that kind of work. But growing up also, my dad was an educator. He was the principal of the vocational center for the county. And then he went on to do some small town politics as the mayor of the city of Stanton. And now he's in the Virginia House of Delegates. And so that was always interesting too, being a daughter of a politician, sharing your parent with the community came with challenges, but it was also important to realize how important public service is to everybody. So that kind of, was part of who I am, and developed me into realizing the importance of that.
Folks, we do not have a bad feed. That is rain that is pouring down on that barn that Kristi is in right now. And that's fine, because having a little bit of rain is cool. And besides, that background is awesome. You know what? So I'll go ahead and I'll unmute and mute her as we need to kind of keep the feed coming in where it needs to be. But I just wanted to let you know, it's not your phone, it's not your computer, it's rain. I love rain. Rain is a good thing, right? So anyways, so growing up in the mountains, country girl, riding the horses, doing all that stuff. And like you said, you grew up as a daughter of a politician. What was that like?
It was interesting. My mom taught first grade, which was an exhausting grade to teach. So when my dad would have certain events to go to, and she was tired and didn't want to go, I got to go, which was interesting, going along and seeing how he could work a room and meet and greet people. It taught me some really good skills, on how to kind of interact with people. We learned the process of what it takes to get elected, helping him put out signs, and also getting those first signatures that he needed to be able to run. Was fun, but it was also interesting. I mean, you can't go anywhere between him being the principal of vocational school and also a politician. Everywhere you go, you're having to stop and talk to people. But that was also neat. We were always very proud of all his accomplishments. He immigrated when he was 10 from Italy, from a very small village, and it wasn't like it was handed to him. He had to work to be who he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your father sounds like an amazing man.
He is.
So you would ultimately leave Virginia for Texas and kind of leave that old life, behind. What brought you to Texas, Kristi?
So it's interesting because my journey was a little different. I did not like school. I was more interested in being outside and doing things. My goal was to go into the Army after high school and, have a great career with that. And for me, that changed. I've got asthma, so I couldn't do it. And so my parents always said, you you get a job or you go to college. And so my plan B was go to college. And I thought this will be interesting. I don't like school. It's boring to me being in four walls. And so I went ahead and did that, and I had success. Went to James Madison and got a degree in geography. I was actually my specialization was cartography. So I came to the Houston area to work for a company as my first job, and I was a map maker, which now is the company got bought out by Google Maps, and it's the base layer for Google Maps. So that's kind of cool. I was there at the startup, but the role, I guess the educator in me, it must be genetic. Both parents are educators. Everybody in my family was an educator. So I ended up kind of taking on more of a training role, and then, had kids and all that, and couldn't just be jumping on a plane to go collect data. So I ended up getting my teaching certificate in special education, and didn't want to teach in a classroom. It's a bit too confining for me. So that's when I ended up at the children's home, which I dearly loved for 12 years as the education program manager.
I love that you went, and you got your degrees. You went to James Madison University, and then you would go on to get your master's degree from Mary Baldwin University, and you wear boots and jeans to work. I mean, there's not too many people out there that have master's degrees that are able to get up in the morning, put on their boots, their jeans, their spurs, their chaps, their cowboy hat, whatever it may be, and get out there to work. But you have done that, and you have done it very well, because you have taken all of everything you learned in college and all that education, and you've kind of put it in a vehicle that really inspires you to get up and get out of bed every morning. And that's with working with at-risk youth and folks that have special disabilities to heal them through equine therapy. Can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So my job at JoyRide Center, I'm the program manager for a day program, and I have 18 wonderful adults with disabilities who have aged out of the public school system. So they're all over the age of 21. And we do all the facilities type work for the equestrian program. And all but one of my students also are in the equestrian program and ride. So that's kind of neat. We also have a ground school program that we do where my students are doing showmanship skills, which means they're during class, we're not on the horses, but we're showing them, because we go to Special Olympics and also Top Hands, which is right around the time of Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And there is a showmanship portion of those shows. So we do everything from laundry to maintaining our beautiful sensory garden and walking nature trails, creating production crafts, which we do that are really cool recycled projects. So we use corks to make ornaments. We bend bottle caps to make flowers, all sorts of cool stuff.
Can you explain what an at-risk youth is and what these children bring to the JoyRide facility when they are enrolled in your program?
So the at-risk youth are more from my old job that I had at the children's home, which is really cool because they actually come out to JoyRide also for some of our ground school programs. The at-risk youth population is more the population of what my oldest child is. He grew up in the children's home, got him at age 13 over there, and then he went on to be at military high school, military 2-year college, and now he's in the Army. So these children come from families who are in crisis. that crisis could be anything from parents on drugs or with alcohol abuse, or grandparents trying to raise children who, and the grandparents have failing health, and it's just difficult. So that at-risk population is an interesting population to deal with. Now, my students at JoyRide, the adults that I have with disabilities, they're not so much an at-risk youth, but they are at risk in the sense that they need a purpose. Mm-hmm. Everybody needs a purpose. So that population kind of gets forgotten about because they do have disabilities. Whether it's a cognitive disability, a physical disability, what are they going to do all day? A lot of them end up sitting around in their home and playing on their phone or their iPad or watching TV. And everybody can have a purpose. You just have to find what they're good at. Some of my nonverbal students or autistic students are the best folders at letters that you've ever seen. They stuff all of our envelopes, hundreds of them, and they're so fast at it. Shredding paper, anything. Some of them, they all have a purpose. And I think that each one of us need to remember that we all have a purpose. Sometimes we just need to find what it is.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And it's amazing that you and your, and the folks at JoyRide and, the places that you work at and donate so much of your time, are giving these disabled folks, again, the purpose, and you're teaching them how to stuff envelopes, how to be a contributor, and by them doing that, I'm sure that makes them feel wonderful. It probably makes them feel like they're a part of the team, and they're in there and they're carrying on good, meaningful relationships and conversations. And, and again, it's teaching them these life skills. A lot of these are just, people are just kids, and so to have those life skills being taught to them, and again, being around a positive place, is a recipe for success. Right there. How do you reach at-risk youth? For an example, how do you find these kids that need help? Do they reach out to you, or do parents or just folks in the community kind of give you hints on who may need some help?
Yeah. So a lot of the churches worked with the children's home, and just community outreach. It kind of word kind of gets out that children's home where I worked was out there, and then the children get placed, and it was always a voluntary placement. But connecting that population with different resources in the community is really important, because they need to know that somebody's going to show up for them. They've had a lot of disappointment in their life. So being available, showing up, having a conversation where you're actually listening to them and not talking at them was always a really important way to reach them. And so the young man that I call my oldest son, it was like that for him. And he's 23 now and doing great, but he needed direction. I wasn't going anywhere. No matter how much he wanted to take things out on me, that's fine. I was a safe person. I wasn't going anywhere. So with that population, you need to be available and show up, mm-hmm. and give them opportunities.
Explain what equine therapy is and how it's beneficial to helping folks with disabilities, as well as, your at-risk youth that you help.
So equine therapy is using the horse as a partner, not as a vehicle or just a statue or a pawn, but as a partner. They're an employee, just like we are. A very expensive one, might I add, sometimes. And, that horse is a 1,000-pound animal that you are building a relationship with. And you're connecting with. A horse senses when you're having a bad day and when you're having a good day. So for a lot of our students and clients, it's very valuable because they have to stay in control of their emotions in order to have a good experience with that animal. And so that animal can provide all sorts of opportunities for feedback that's not from another human. We've got the train going by, sorry.
Hey, that's Houston, you know what I mean? The train, the rain, the barns, the horses. I love it, man. Hey, this is almost like a 4D experience. If we can just, kind of make it rain through the podcast. I mean, hey, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, we're having the outdoor classroom experience right now, right?
Yeah, everybody's getting.
You never know what's going to show up at my house.
Everybody's getting the full experience on this one.
But yeah, equine therapy. So in the sense of riding the horse, a horse can simulate the same movement as a person walking, which is really cool. Because for somebody who has mobility issues, that might be like my friend who I talked about that had the accident, went from walking to being in a wheelchair. That's a very liberating experience. To actually be in a saddle, be in control of a 1,000-pound animal, or on the ground walking the animal, either one, and being successful at that.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when your friend got hurt and got paralyzed?
So I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. I was a sophomore. He was a senior that year. Yeah.
So
it was a big group of us who used to always go up in the mountains and ride together. And I lived in the Charlie Brown world where parents, I don't know where they were. They were somewhere. But we would go and ride and do all sorts of stuff. But yeah, he got hurt and was in a rehabilitation place for a while. And then when he got out, he said, "I'm riding." And we're like, "Okay, cool, let's go."
Mm-hmm. So when you were 15 years old, this happened, and now look at you. You're kind of helping those same people that have suffered the same fate. Do you think that perhaps subliminally back when you were 15 years old that you would at one point down the road be doing what you're doing because of the event that you saw your friend go through?
Wow. Yeah, it was kind of a surreal, like full circle experience when I saw that this was actually a thing. Like, wow, this is cool. Like, I needed to be in on it. So yeah, I think it kind of gives me some insight into in the back of my mind into the possibilities of how important it can be and what it does to a person. Because when we're out there, with the clients, they're on the horse and then they go home. I got to see the other side with my friend and really get to talk to him and see what it did for him. Not just when he was riding, but also just the emotional development that it gave him and the confidence that he could do something that, didn't involve his wheelchair at that time.
Mm-hmm. How long is your program for these at-risk kids? We'll talk about the at-risk first, and then we'll get into the folks that have the disabilities. Is it a certain time period for the at-risk youth, or is this something that they can continue on doing for as long as they want?
So it's about an 8-week program that they do at JoyRide, and they come in and do a series of different exercises with the ground and kind of confidence building and self-reflection. And it's a similar program that we do for our veterans program as well. But the purpose of it is kind of life coaching and life skills development, confidence building. and then they'll bring us another group of kids from the children's home. So, but it's a lot of fun being able to see, especially the first group we had, because those were some of the kids that I had there, when I was there just 4 or 5 years ago when I was still there. And one particular young lady, she's the same age as my youngest son. They're juniors in high school now, but I had been with her since she was in 3rd grade. And I remember the day she came, and it was a lot of fun. And sometimes she'll even come over to my house and help me clean out my chicken coop and clean out stalls here at the house with the horses. So, like I said, showing up for them, being available to them, and then letting them, hopefully when they're old enough, some of them will come back to JoyRide and volunteer with our program, therapeutic riding program for the individuals with disabilities.
Right. Yes. Give back to those who have given them so much. Exactly. Now, I want to know, what is it like day one when you get your new class in? And then I want to know what it looks like on that graduation day. Can you explain the transformation that you see throughout this 8-week period?
Well, I had the opportunity to be involved with the first class that we had, and that was amazing. Day one, they came in unsure. They were able to go out and pick the horse that they thought that they would have the best relationship with, and the horse picked them as well. So sometimes it wasn't the one that they thought it would be. So that's really neat to have these horses, kind of loose, and then the students will go out there, and the horses will kind of like look at them, and they'll look at the horses, and they all kind of like check each other out. And because not every relationship works, whether it's with people or with horses, or, it's like the dog you get for the other person in the family and it likes you, right? It's just kind of the way it works. But through that process, you see these kids, most of them inner city kids that have never been around these large animals, start off scared, and then the end, they're in a round pen, lunging these animals, moving them around, just confident as they can be. So it's a huge self-esteem builder. And then teamwork too. They're working together as a team. Some of the exercises, they're working in groups of 2 or 3. And that's a really cool process too. So and hopefully that's a skill that they'll keep with them for life. They'll reflect back on it.
Sure. And your at-risk youth, those are the folks that don't have any physical disabilities. These are the kids that have more of your anxieties, your depressions, your mental health type conditions. Now, right. What does it look like from day one to graduation from that 8-week period? Do you see a change in their attitudes and the change of their behaviors and the way they look at life from going through this 8-week program? Do you start to see that transformation, and how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I see the transformation. It definitely doesn't take away the trauma of being away from your family or the things that happened to you, or to them as a child, but you definitely see them be able to handle things a little bit better and have a little different outlook on life. And it feels good. It's a great thing to see that confidence in them develop, and then to hear about it from some of my old colleagues. They'll say, hey, that program really made a difference in that kid. And some of them, they don't have for very long. They're in foster care, so they might go back to their family, and which is a good thing. And it's just a skill that in an experience really that hopefully they'll hold with them.
Yeah, so it's safe to say that personal development, you're teaching life skills, coping skills, all of these tools that are so important for these people to have a successful adulthood, if you will. Like you said, a lot of these kids are coming from the inner city. They've never been on the back of a horse, and you're teaching them all these different techniques while getting their mind off what may be bothering them. They're just trying to stay on top of a 1,000-pound animal and get through those motions, on being the back of a horse. Which I know a lot of veterans out there do equine therapy, and they swear by it. So I know the pro.
Well, I think that a big thing with it too is just trusting themselves and their skills, and also their instructors. To try something new is always hard, but to try something new with an animal that is that big is scary. So you have to trust and build trust, and I think it's a faster way for them to develop that trust, because they're seeing it, they're experiencing it, they're not just being talked at. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved with, experiential learning in outdoor classrooms, because I noticed how effective it was. Early on in my career at the children's home, I started a garden. And we had a 4-H program where the kids showed animals. And I saw how they developed. They complain about it at first. Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to work in a garden. I don't want to, be around this stinky animal. And in a very short amount of time, they learned very quickly, the dedication and the discipline it took to do these hard things. And as the adult in charge of the programs, whether it be equine therapy, whether it be gardening, you're guiding them. You're not really instructing them, so to speak, but you're guiding them in this journey, in this process, and you build that relationship so much faster. I had the opportunity to take 5 of my kids from the children's home to Yosemite for 2 weeks. We went backpacking. We went with a larger group in Houston, and so our group ended up being of about 40 inner city kids, and it was amazing how quick they all started to develop this trust, because you're out there. Bears stole our food one night. We were down a can of food, but this experience was amazing. You're backpacking, and you've got this heavy pack, and you're getting that deep pressure exercise, and we're doing 10 miles a day with elevation, and it's beautiful. You're tired, your feet hurt, you have blisters, but you have to trust the process and trust the journey and trust the adults in charge. And that was a really cool thing. Probably one of the coolest things I've done with kids.
And you don't have time to think, about all the negative stuff that might be in your head. You're out there is you're just taking that next step, and and working as a unit, with that, structure, and, and that field trip, if you will. So I want to talk a little bit about your students now that have the physical and mental disabilities that, as well. You were talking about, they're nonverbal, they could be autistic, or have other physical disabilities. Is this something that they will continue to do? Or is this a program as well that only, is a certain period of time?
No, so my students are actually, they're at work. It's a job for them. And some of them have been around since the day program started 13 years ago. So they've been in the program. We have a little bit of a trajectory now where they can be a senior worker, which means they're helping the other student workers kind of transition as they come in as new employees, as we call them. So the model of the program is a work program.
Beautiful. Yeah, and, again, you're giving these folks an opportunity that they wouldn't have really, anywhere else. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't hire them because of their disabilities, and you're giving them a paycheck. And they're also learning, again, about so much life skills and the personal development and the relationships and all that stuff. So that right there is enough to really help drive these folks that have special disabilities to do a wonderful job for you, because they're probably so blessed and so grateful and thankful that they have a job and that they're earning a paycheck and they can feel like just like everybody else does, being a contributor to society in an honorable way. So I think that right there is probably one of the most beautiful things I've heard in a very, very, very long time, is giving those folks an opportunity to go out there and thrive and again, be those success stories, again, and having that purpose, because with purpose, it creates passion, and passion is just, so great to have in today's world of, darkness. We're surrounded by all the bad, but there's also a lot of good out there. And that's why we have you on the program to talk about it today, because what you guys are doing, essentially, it's God's work. You guys are out there, giving, these folks opportunity. And that's what it's all about, is having opportunity. And once you get it, it's making the most out of it. Now, is there a cost involved to your at-risk youth or your special needs participants?
So we do have some grant funding that we get from different sources, and there is a cost, but it's very reduced in the amount based on the tuition assistance that's needed for them. So it's very reasonable, and it's very blessed that we have the grant funding that we do from different community resources.
Mm-hmm. And so if folks wanted to donate to Prepared for Outdoor Adventures or the JoyRide Center in Magnolia, how would they go about doing that?
Well, we'll have some, the best way is to definitely follow us on social media for JoyRide, and there'll be some end of year giving opportunities that are coming up. And then our big jamboree is in March, which is a great time to buy a table or buy a ticket to come to that as our big fundraiser. And then my business that I have, Prepared for Outdoor Adventures, it might as well be a nonprofit. I started that because there was a need for people to get wilderness first aid certification and first aid, CPR, AD, and also kayaking skill building. So I started doing that, and I serve a lot of Boy Scout troop leaders. It's very hard to find wilderness first aid, and I needed it when I went out to Yosemite with the students. It was expensive. So with my background, I was an EMT for several years, and so I was able to start doing that. And we do a lot of different experiences with that. I also do first aid and CPR over at work. I teach some of my students with disabilities first aid and CPR, and they do great at it.
Again, learning more skills, giving them opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise had. I want to know where you kayak around here. Do you kayak here in Texas, or do you take it out of state?
I do. I actually go down to the coast some and I'll kayak down there. My favorite place to go is up in the Sam Houston National Forest up at Stubblefield Lake. They have a small boat launch, and it's a really cool place to go. My daughter and I have spent a lot of time up there and had some really good memories. Seen bald eagles up there. We got in a flock of pelicans one time, and we've been kayaking up there for as long as I can remember, going back to when I used to have to put my kids on the rope and put them in their kayak and be, make them think they're paddling, but it was really me pulling them. So
yeah,
that's the place.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking kayaking like down a river, because my brother kayaks and he's kayaking down rivers, and I guess you can also kayak in a lake. It's just more laid back.
Yeah, it's flat water, and I'll go up on the Brazos River some up at Hidalgo Falls. That's a fun place to go as well. So
kayaking on a lake, that seems like a lot of work.
Can be, but it's a great workout.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah, going down a river is pretty easy. You're just kind of just trying to stabilize the kayak, the kayak at that point. But definitely two different deals there.
Yeah.
When we were in Idaho not long ago, my brother took my son Brady down some crazy rapids, and that's what I remember kayaking to be. And man, they were flying. They got their helmets on and their flak vests and all that stuff. And so when I think of kayaking, that's what I'm thinking, rolling over in the river and all that stuff. But again, you're not really. It's not really the workout. Again, it's the stabilizing of the kayak. But again, that's another great tool, I bet, for folks that are going through some life challenges, because again, you're not given the opportunity to really think, and you're in the mental health business, and another thing I'm starting to see that is becoming very popular is adrenaline motorsports. There's a lot of veterans out there who are starting to get behind the wheels of these off-road vehicles, and they're doing 100 miles an hour across the desert floor, or they're four-wheeling, or, going down the rivers and kayaks, whatever it may be, because they're getting that adrenaline. And I guess it's very therapeutic for some people. So I want you to explain the mental health perspective from being, who you are, and how the horses help mentally with the challenged folks that are there to participate in your program.
Yeah, and you mentioned the adrenaline part of kayaking. In some of my instructor training classes, there were actually several people going through the process who are veterans who were creating veterans programs for kayaking. So there are programs out there for veterans that involve kayaking, which are really cool. But as far as the horses go, it's definitely, an adrenaline rush when you're on these large animals and you're in control of them. I was instructing a class the other week, and, I had two students in there who have focus issues, and we made it clear, like, you're the boss of the horse, and it's like the light bulb went on, and they're like, oh, I'm the boss? Well, that's cool. Somebody's not telling me what to do. And it really helped with the mental focus, and they do a great job with that. It changes things when you're on a horse. We've had students who don't speak ever, and then all of a sudden they're on the horse and they're using words. We're hearing whoa and walk, and that is a really neat thing to see, a big transformation. And the parents, they're like, wow, I didn't know they could do that. I never heard them say these words. And then with showmanship, we had a little show this summer, and everybody was just floored, because you have to remember a lot of patterns and how to keep the horse's feet all even. We call that squaring the horse. And, which side to be on when the judge is on the same side. To watch them be able to do that when they've got cognitive and physical disabilities was pretty amazing, even for me. I was like, wow, this is cool.
How often do you guys do this? Is this an everyday thing, or is this a once in a month type thing, or once every couple of weeks?
Every day we have showmanship, except Tuesdays. We have some mechanical horses. So these are mechanical horses that simulate the movement, and they're really good. They look kind of strange, but when you get on them, you're like, wow, this really does feel like I'm on a horse. And we have a projector with a different, like GoPro videos of rides, and they do that on Tuesdays. And incidentally, I just got a grant to transform that room into a multi-sensory room that'll involve aromatherapy. So we, try to bring the outdoors in and change the lighting, and we'll change it from a projector to a smart TV to make it a little bit more autism friendly. So they're doing something with horses in my day program every day. That's their reward for being good employees.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. We've got some people out there that may be tuning in today that may be going through some life struggles, some life challenges. Do you have any, say, wise words or any thing out there that you can add some value to these people that may be going through some hard times right now?
Absolutely. My biggest piece of advice is try something new. Take on a new project, especially if it can be outside. And when you're challenged with something new, your mind has to work a little different, and you can start to develop yourself personally in a different way because it's a different challenge, and you start to feel growth within yourself. You stay stagnant, you never grow. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we're dealing with certain challenges, it means that we need to grow in a different way.
Right.
And
yeah.
Definitely being outdoors is one of the most positive things you can do.
Mm-hmm. Whether
it's a walk, whether it's sitting on your porch, being outside is very important.
Sure. It's just getting out of your comfort zone and realizing that there's more to life than just sitting in a room or being depressed or, again, just living in that comfort where a lot of things can go bad really quick, whether you're eating yourself to death or you're living in a depressed or anxiety riddled state. And, you are working with people that have special disabilities, and these are some of the most happiest people that I've ever met in my entire life. Folks that have Down syndrome or, they're autistic or whatever it may be. These people, we can learn a lot from these folks because they actually have a lot of really good reasons to be really upset and to be depressed in life, but they're not. These people are full of gratitude. I mean, every time that I encounter these folks that have special disabilities, they definitely teach me a lot, and I know they probably teach you guys a lot too, as they're and you're there to help them, and they're probably helping you in return.
Right. Yeah. It's neat. Volunteerism is very important, especially, if you're feeling down, you're feeling anxious, go find a center like ours and volunteer, because you do learn a lot from these individuals with disabilities. They are happy, but they can also, if they don't like something, they're going to tell you. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the fun with working with them, because they'll say anything. It's this uninhibited happiness, but also bluntness that they have that is just kind of magical to see. So we do learn from them, because you learn that you can say things and build relationships, give feedback to people, and at the end of the day, they're still going to like you. They're still going to be friends, and they're special. They're a special mm-hmm. population to work with. We look at their abilities, not their disabilities, because their abilities are huge. Mm-hmm. And we definitely can learn from them. Both my children, before my daughter left for basic training, she was volunteering there. My son comes out and helps. And I think for young people, it's important to be doing things like this as well and giving back to these populations and whether it's the at-risk population or people with, special needs.
Mm-hmm. Where are you located? If somebody wants to stop by to sign up to be a volunteer.
So JoyRide is located in Magnolia, Texas, right there off 1488, right near 1488 and 1774. The JoyRide, what's it called? The JoyRide facility? JoyRideCenter.org is our website. And there's a lot of great information on there that people can find out about our day program, our equine assisted learning program, which is what our at-risk youth population do, the veterans program, which we call Operation Equine, and also our, therapeutic riding program. So
awesome.
You can find out about volunteering and also about participation in the program as well. Now, our veterans program is really neat because there is no cost for that program at all. So if there are any veterans who want to participate in that, and that's a program with a purpose, there is a trajectory with that. There's an introductory program where they learn about the horses, and then they go through the process of starting to learn how to be a volunteer with working with the horses. So they are giving back while they're learning stuff as well.
Outstanding. In the veterans program, how often is the veterans program, and how can the veterans sign up for this?
So that program goes on in cycles, kind of like cohort groups throughout the year. And it has different stages to that program. So they just need to contact us, and our program manager of that will talk to them and let them know kind of where they are with it. And I think those programs are really important. And you can be any kind of veteran. You don't have to be a combat veteran. You can be any age. We've got some that are a little older in the program and some that are a little younger. You can be from any county. I know some of the veterans programs are restricted by which county you live in, but ours is for any veteran.
Outstanding. Well, listen, this has been a great interview, and we sincerely appreciate everything you do in the community, with giving back and, with your mental health background and everything you do in the outdoor adventure side and working with at-risk children and, at-risk folks that have special disabilities. What you do is selfless, and you're giving back so much to a community that is so deserving, and I'm sure they are very grateful for you, because like you've said, you need to be available, and that's very godly. That's very, very godly.
Yes, indeed. It's a special job to have, and like I always say, I feel so lucky to be able to do a job that most people volunteer to do. I just get lucky; I get paid for it.
Very good. You know what? And it's not a job. If you love it and you get up and you have that purpose and that passion to put on your boots and jeans and your belt buckle and your Carhartt jacket and get out there and get to work and improve the lives of others.
Exactly.
Awesome. Until next time, for Tuesdays with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.